They never thought the business was going to be this big. We're hoping to do $200 million this year.
Wow.
We've never raised any money because no one would have given us any money.
They literally picked the best guy in the world to do this.
We'll probably spend $100 million in marketing this year.
Because you're the D2C guy.
Superstars don't want to go play in smaller markets.
The death of D2C brand.
Okay, dude, gun to your head. Would you trade the business for a guaranteed $5,000 a day? And like now we do $10,000 an hour.
What would happen if TikTok got banned today?
Dude, Marquez is goated. He's been the dream guy for this business forever.
Yeah, that could be worth hundreds of millions of dollars if done right. Oh, that's your guys' new offices.
That's an old office. You're kind of fucking...
Oh, is that same one? It's on Main Street.
Yeah.
The one I went to.
Yeah.
Well, you guys kept it all these years.
It is, I mean, talk about like offices being raised. Ours is being, it's a warehouse basically.
So you have, so the whole Austin move, you were over it.
Yeah, you know, I met everyone I was going to meet. And dude, I'm like really quick with decisions. Like when I hate something, I just like,
Your water.
I'm sick, dude.
And you were just over it?
Yeah, dude, Austin's great. I would retire there. Like, there's like a lot of things people hate about it, like the weather. But I love the city. Like, it's very cool. It's just really small. It's smaller than you think.
Because it's got 1 million people, but it's pretty spread out.
Yeah, the greater area has 1 million people, but
that's still not that many. I mean, LA is
10.
Yeah,
right?
Dallas is 7.
And I'm from Washington State. You're from Washington State.
Yeah.
It's smaller than Seattle, like half as small as Seattle. So,
because you were pretty bullish on it first, like it's the best place to start a company and all that. Has that gone away?
if you're gonna have a company in person, it's probably still the best place to do it. Like, there's just young talent who's hungry. But if you're trying to get like a big business, I'm like, oh, I'm the biggest business here. Outside of Yeti. Yeti's like the biggest game in town. But I met Matt, the CEO, and I'm like, okay, well, I can bail now, right? I think if you're trying to grow like a $1 billion brand, really in like the consumer space, right? Like if you're doing tech, you have to be in San Francisco. You have to be in New York or maybe LA, and I'm not moving to New York, so LA it is.
Yeah, no, I have my love-hate with LA. Like there's days I'm like, should we move the business to San Diego? But then on other days I'm like, it would be hard for me to imagine to be anywhere else but here, just because the network effect, and it's just, I think it's even more so geared towards LA for fashion.
Undoubtedly.
And like we said, we have James Purse like next door. I mean, everyone is right around this area.
Yeah, your business park has Dr. Squatch, James Purse, Liquid Death is right next door.
Yeah.
Like there's, in a block radius, you have $4 billion brands or whatever. And then you do not have that in Austin. Like Austin, it's way more hippie, and really like New York's still probably the best place to be, but it's really cold and you do not get houses in New York. So,
and the one thing that I envy with New York is the office culture, I think, is fully back. Like I talked to a couple buddies and they're like, everyone is fully in the office. Like no one wants to work from home there. And I feel like that there's an element of that like LA will never come back because of traffic.
Yeah, dude. And if you're in New York, you want to grind.
Yeah.
Like, it's like if you don't want to grind, you've left by now. So the people there like really want to be there. They love it. Like they're hustling. LA probably has less of that, but you cannot beat the quality of life, dude. Like I live in the Valley. I have a pool. My wife's family's from the Valley. So she's born and raised.
Where in Washington are you from?
So I always say Camino Island because it's like the thing people can recognize, but like that whole area, like Snohomish County, like right Stanwood, Camino, like all that little area. It's the sticks, dude. It's the mud.
It's funny. Most people don't know where Wenatchee is. That's where I'm from.
Yeah. And I've been.
You've been to Wenatchee.
Yeah.
It's funny. I always say like my Seattle, I'm from Seattle just because it's easier to say. But my Washington friends are like, that's like 3 hours west of Seattle, but it's just easier. But I'm very proud to be from Wenatchee, even more so now.
Yeah, dude, it sounds like you love it. I fucking hate the place I'm from. It's like, dude, it's straight up like the mud. It's like, because I was growing up when like the opioid epidemic was raging, so it was just like not a good place. People were dying and shit.
Which show was from there that kind of depicted that? Was it what's that one? Wasn't there a show that was depicted of the but it was based in like that area.
Oh, I have no idea.
With one of the Loeffner brothers, Taylor Loeffner, I think.
I don't know who that
Midnight
is.
or Night. I don't know.
We'll Google it, dude.
We'll
but
Google
yeah.
it.
But yeah, dude, super. I mean, I'm glad to be out of there. But you know what's crazy? Do you know what Thrive Cosmetics is?
Yes.
Okay.
We met him at one of the meta dinners, I think.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
The founder's from the same town as me, and the town is like 5,000 people. Like nobody's from there, right?
Wow.
Nobody knows where it is on a map. She's from the exact same town. We grew like maybe 2 streets.
Same age?
No, she's like maybe 5 years older.
Okay.
But like we know some of the same people, and I'm like, it's just very, very strange. A couple brands coming out of there. Just couldn't wait to get out.
So the GDP of your companies is
Totally.
more than the GDP of the little town, I'm sure. Right?
Yeah, dude, probably. It is it's just like a Boeing town. It's just like a working class town, and like totally fine and normal until the opioid epidemic. I think it's back. I think it's fine, but it was just like when I was in high school, like 2006 to 2012, that whole little area was bad. I don't know. Maybe Wenatchee skipped over it.
Wenatchee has there's like it's like if you stayed there, like and we had a lot of kids that got into drugs that maybe didn't leave. I think it's a great place to grow up. But then if you stay there too long, I think it can be not the best place. For a lot of people love it. It's great for family building. It's I feel like it's someone mentioned this. It's the family capital of the world. Like if you want to have like a great childhood, because you got 2 rivers, good school system, you got mountains right there. You know, small-ish community, even though it's getting bigger. I think it's got about 100,000 people.
Dude, and like amazing summers, the best summers.
Oh, the best summers.
But yeah, when like, because you say like you're from Seattle, I have to do the same thing because nobody knows where we're from, and like, at least where I'm from, I'm like, dude, it is like the exact opposite of Seattle. It's like, you know, but
it still rains a lot there, right?
Oh, totally. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, it's like 4-wheeling and mudding, and like it's just way more hick. It's like Appalachia where I'm from. I don't know if Wenatchee's nicer.
Appalachia. Is that like where horses and stuff?
Yeah, there's like tons of horses, but Appalachia's like where like coal miners were from.
Oh, okay.
It's like West Virginia.
Got it.
That's what it feels like, at least when I'm back home.
Yeah, because you've been in LA 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Or in and out now with the Austin move and all that.
Yeah.
All right. So today, I'm excited to bring you on. You've been a good friend of mine, and I want to get into your transition from agency to CEO. Like what you would do if you were starting a brand today. I want to get into the creative economy. Marquise Brown, you know, tell me a little bit more about that. And then what you would do if TikTok gets banned today. So there's a bunch of things on the rundown that I'm excited to go over. Tell me a little bit about, you know, a lot of people don't know, but you started as an agency and then you became the CEO of Ridge. How did that happen, and what was the story there?
Yeah, so me and my CMO Connor, we founded an agency together. There was a couple other guys involved, and I was working at an agency in LA, and it sucked. And the average client tenure was like 4 months. Mm-hmm. So if you imagine that you sign a client, you get up to speed, you're 6 weeks into it, and they're already trying to fire you. And I'm like, oh, we could do exactly what they're doing, but better. And
was that because of once they figured out what you did, they didn't need you anymore? Or it was like, why do you think the turnover was there?
It was a very fast-growing agency. I mean, they had 200 plus employees. Like, they were signing a deal a day or 2 deals a day, like a wholesale team out there signing them. And it just wasn't a good process. Like, people weren't getting the hands-on attention they wanted. They were oversold. Like, it was just a bunch of disconnect, and it was just pandemonium. Like, everyone was mad at everybody. And the people who got screwed over were the clients. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I was talking to some of the people there. I'm like, we can go do this exact same thing way better. Mm-hmm. And originally it was me, my CMO Connor, my friend John, and this guy Brian. We go out there and we start our own agency. And within like the first week, Brian screws us over. And he's like, he ends up like taking a job someplace and like just totally screwing over the whole thing. So it was just me, John, and Connor left. And we're like, okay, we'll figure this out. We bring my brother in to do web development, and I'm the CEO, so all I do is sales. And I line up like 10 clients, and most of them you never heard of. We ended up doing a little bit of work for Mudwater. So Mudwater's a real brand still around. And then Ridge was one of the clients. And when I met Ridge, they were doing like $4 million a year, maybe like some small $1 million a year number.
And this was back in 2012?
This is 2016.
2016.
Yeah. So I'm 30. So I guess I.
And Ridge had been how old at that point to get to 4 mil?
They started in 2012.
They started in 25. Got it. Yeah.
Or actually, probably 2013 with a Kickstarter. So they were just running their own Facebook campaigns. They got to either $2 or $4 million themselves, and all they had was 3 employees: father, son, best friend.
Wow.
And so they met us, and we were running an agency business. And I was like, "Oh yeah, dude, we'll just do whatever." I'm like, "We'll do your Facebook ads, we'll do your Google ads." And so I would sign the business, and then Connor would do all the work, basically, right? And then John was the COO. He just did like all the paperwork, filing, whatever. Very hard job. He ended up doing a lot of marketing stuff too.
Are all 3 still involved in the business?
Connor's the CMO still. John, we ended up, so skipping ahead a couple of years, Ridge and the agency merge, and me and Connor take equity stakes in the business. John didn't want to come over.
Wow.
So John ended up buying the agency from us with one of the guys, Skylar, and then they operated the agency independently, called Ridge Growth Agency. They did that separately for like a year, and then they sold to a big tech company, and it's been sold a couple times. So that agency has exited like 3 or 4 times. It ended up getting into a really weird niche. Like it ended up doing equity crowdfunding, like totally separate from e-commerce. So it was valuable to some Canadian tech company. But yeah, so they didn't want to come on board. So we merge, we come in-house, and then overnight, Ridge goes from like 3 or 4 employees to 30 employees because my whole agency comes inside. And that was like 2018 is when we merged. And
then from 2018 to now, how has the growth been for Ridge from the 4 million?
Yeah, so when we decided to merge, I think in 2018 we did like $15 or $20 million.
That first year, you fully merged.
Yeah, we fully merged. And the reason we merged was it got to the point where Ridge couldn't operate without us because we were doing email and customer service and logistics, and like their entire divisions of their company were ran by us. And Ridge was over half the agency revenue. So Ridge was giving us $300,000 a month or whatever. And then additionally, you can't really exit an agency business. It's hard to, right? So you end up working really hard to build an agency business, and it's only worth whatever your contracts are worth. And
those are all short term, right? Like only years at a time.
Yeah, maybe a year if you're lucky, right? The thing with agencies is they all want to be month to month now because it's so competitive. But anyway, so like the agency business has a very limited ceiling of what you can do with it, and Ridge had like a very high ceiling. And I remember being like, we can take this brand to $100 million, right? So I don't know, we ended up doing 15 or 20 million in 2018. And, you know, it was just 50% growth pretty steadily out of there. We had like one big year where we doubled, but outside of that, we just target 50% growth every year. We did 9 figures in like maybe 2021 or 2022. And we're hoping to do a couple $100 million this year.
Wow. Going back, what was the conversation like with the brand owner, the father and son at that time? And was it hostile at all? I can imagine like, oh, this guy that's running my business wants to, you know, be a partner. He could have easily said no. How did that conversation go?
No, not hostile at all, man. They're the chillest dudes on earth. So Paul is Buddhist, and he met his wife in India, and then they raised Daniel Buddhist, and they've just like always been incredibly generous, incredibly chill. So there was never any hostility. I think that's why there's no egos at Ridge. And
that's great.
When we hire outside executives, they're always really worried they're going to come in and step on people's toes. And like the universal experience, people coming in, they're like, you know, team members are like, oh my God, I'm so thankful you know what you're doing. Come in here and help us. Because we're still a homegrown team. We're still a family-owned business. And it's been good for everybody, dude. I mean, they never thought the business was going to be this big. Like we would just...
it's an absolute, you're playing with house money for them.
Yeah, dude. I mean, all of us came from nothing. I think we started talking about how I'm from a very impoverished area.
Yeah.
And Paul, the dad, was a special ed teacher for like 30 years. No, we've never raised any money because no one would have given us any money.
Yeah.
Like we're all just very grateful for what we've been able to build. So
they got to be like blown away now. Like they literally picked the best guy in the world to do this.
Yeah, it's been super beneficial for everybody. Before I came here, we had lunch together with him, and Austin, the best friend, like he was telling us that like he remembers when they were driving in their car. The first year they did $1 million. And Daniel, the son, turns to him and he's like, okay, dude, gun to your head. Would you trade the business for a guaranteed $5,000 a day? And they're like, we would totally do it. And like now we do $10,000 an hour. You know what I mean? The business is so much bigger than it's ever been, and way bigger than they thought it was going to be. So
has there been points of like who gets to decide like what the next phase is? Is it a group decision? Was there any moments along the way that maybe that original group wanted to exit, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, all of our net worth is still in the business.
Yeah.
So we try to make decisions like together. Whatever decision we make, it'll be uniform across the across everybody. So what's very common is Paul's retired at this point, right? Mm-hmm. So the dad, I mean, he had a whole full career before this. So he owns a big chunk of the business. So a lot of private equity groups just want to buy his equity, right? Because they're like, hey, he's already retired. That's passive equity. He's not doing any work in this business. But we've decided that like any deal we do, we're just doing together because we don't want, I mean, we're friends first. They're family first. Mm-hmm. So we don't want to like anyone to get any bad blood or whatever. So. And
when you were an agency, like when you were running, how much information and did you learn during that period to give you the tools you need to be a good CEO now that Ridge has gotten big? And was that time very instrumental?
Yeah, it was instrumental because I learned marketing. Yeah. Like I think a lot of
trial and error with other people's money.
Yeah, yeah. It's like you need to learn marketing if you want to be a good D2C CEO. Mm-hmm. It's like at the end of the day, the biggest line item is marketing spend. So, you know, the 3 buckets are logistics, COGS, marketing spend, people. So I guess there's 4 buckets, right? The biggest one of that is marketing spend. We'll probably spend $100 million in marketing this year. And imagine if I didn't understand that, like the business would suck. And you see a lot of these companies raise venture money and go out of business and like are unprofitable. It's because the CEO or the founder or whoever doesn't have a good understanding of the marketing machine. As a D2C business, you are just a attention machine. Like marketing is just dollars for attention, and you cannot have sales without attention. So the big lesson from the agency days is that I learned marketing. And like the reason why Connor and I are still partners and still talk every day is because he runs the marketing side of the business and I can actually be a resource there. We can talk through stuff, and it's not just like him explaining it to some, you know, unattached CEO.
Yeah, I call Sean all the time. Like, hey, Sean, can you help me walk through this? And all of those times together have been huge for us. One of the things that I've come a long way in is the whole work from home or in the office. I love being in the office. I love seeing people, but over the course of the last couple of years, we've realized in LA, you can't compete with being fully in the office with the work from home culture that is in Los Angeles. You have a pretty unique structure of how you set up your company with everyone has a VA and the whole team is remote. How did that happen? And was it because of COVID, and where is it at now?
It was definitely because of COVID. So, you know, to give you some context, I used to live around the corner from here, and a 1-bedroom apartment, I think, was $3,600 a month. So if anybody's listening to this, it's a lot of fucking money to spend in a 1-bedroom apartment. And that's the problem with LA is that like it's incredibly expensive and shit's just far away. Dude, when I moved to LA, I lived in a studio in Koreatown. It was $1,400. So there's still cheap places in LA, but like the closer you get to the ocean, it just gets insane.
And do those people that live in those cheap places, are they even the talent that you would, what is the likelihood that they're the talent that you would want to bring into your business? Probably low likelihood.
Yeah. And it's just, there's so many people, it's hard to find the right people. It's just, I mean, LA is challenging. And especially like with the type of businesses we're building, there isn't like an established industry. Mm-hmm. You know, if you were just running like project management for a tech company, people have done that for 30 years at this point, right? Maybe 15 years, but like, you know, UGC creative manager, it's like, that's a brand new thing. So it's hard to find people who have that talent. So people that have the talent could be anywhere on earth. So COVID happened. We had an office in Santa Monica. Couldn't go there anymore. It was like illegal to use the building. So like everyone has to work from home. We're going to learn how this works. We've always had some remote employees. Mm-hmm. Like Sydney's been our email manager since the agency days. She's still director of retention for us. She lives in Texas. She's lived in Texas the whole time. We had Leo, our supply chain manager. He's from China, living in New York. So we've always had like some remote elements of this business. And so COVID happens, everyone has to go remote. And it just immediately like we made the decision we're never going back in the office. The office was already cramped. Like we had 35 people in there bumping elbows every day. And we just had to start explosively hiring throughout 2020. We probably went from 30 people to 50 people or something. And those people were all over the country, right? And then we started being like, okay, if we're fully remote, let's embrace the best parts of being remote. There's a lot of downside to it. Everything has to be recorded. So like there has to be notes taken everywhere. And it's like, okay, let's start layering in layers of international talent. So currently we have like 80 US employees. There's like 100 international staff. And those people are, in Europe, they're in South America, they're in Asia. And their role is just like, if you're, our controller or whatever, you now have, 2 people dedicated to helping you, right? So it's maybe one person's taking notes and going through email, one person is following up on project management or whatever. And it just has let us do, per US employee, millions of dollars in revenue.
How much of your social status has led to building great hires? You've obviously gone from, I think when we started talking, 10,000 followers on Instagram to close to 50 now?
On Twitter.
On Twitter. Like, are you recruiting? Do you think, does that help?
Totally, man.
Because you're the D2C guy. I
think Nick Sharma has that.
But I think I love Nick Sharma, but he hasn't built Ridge.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely a good recruiting tool. Really what it is like, what I think what the podcast is and like just me being able to post on Twitter. One, it shows that I'm human because I try to be funny on there. Sometimes it doesn't work. And 2,
you got some humor. It's hard to have that skill. You definitely got it.
I try. And then what the podcast does is it just verifies I know what I'm talking about. So like if you're top tier talent, like really best in class, you don't want to go work at a bad brand or an idiot or whatever. And at least they can go there and they can listen to 6 hours if they want about me talking about the goals of the company, what we're working on, like, and in the weeds type shit. So they're like, oh, this guy knows what the fuck he's talking about. My career will be safe here. Because at the end of the day, like, it's kind of like how superstars don't want to go play in, smaller markets. Because they're like, that hurts me. Like, even if it could be a great team, it's like, no, I want to play in LA.
You want to play for a good owner.
Yeah, exactly, right? And it's the same thing. So, like, superstar talent, I think, wants to play for, teams where their career will be protected. Especially there's been so many brands closing and so many layoffs. So they're like, okay, I want to be at a brand who's winning, and at least we're publicly winning. It's a good thing people can point to. On
that note of so many brands ending, what is the common mistakes around that thread of the death of D2C brands that happen? We're still maybe towards the end of it, but from 21 to 23, what were some of the biggest mistakes some of those businesses made?
Not making profit. Like it's so silly to think like, okay, if you're Uber, you're in a monopolistic market, right? Like there's going to be one Uber, there's one Google, right? There's plays for massive market share. And then once you build that market share, you can extract profit out of it, right? You can kill your competition. People were looking at D2C the same way or brand building the same way, and it is not. There is no monopoly on brand, right? Because there's just like, as soon as you get too big, you reach oversaturation and you become uncool very fast, right? And that's why people talk about fashion being like cyclical. It goes in these repeating patterns where Crocs is all over the place, then it totally tanks because Crocs hits 15% market share. You see it too much, you hate it, you make fun of it. It becomes a meme. And then it totally plummets, and now it's right back up, and that's like the pattern. So we'll make fun of Allbirds because I think they're the most public example, right? Yeah. But they raised billions of dollars, so they raised hundreds of millions at $1 billion valuation to lose money every single quarter. And the whole idea is like, oh, we're going to grow really fast. Ridge is bigger than them, and we're growing faster than them, and it's because
it's a penny stock now.
Yeah. It's because they lose money on every shoe sold, and for no gain, right? If you're Uber and you're losing money on every customer you're acquiring, it's because you're building this market share. But if you own one pair of Allbirds, you're not more likely to own a second pair of Allbirds.
It's going to take additional investment to get them. Yeah, I always thought it was funny. I saw the Allbirds founder, the founding group, go on and they released their where their suppliers were. And I always he went on CNBC and said, hey, here's all of our suppliers. If more people start buying sustainability, the better. And in my head, as like the competition in me, I would never do that. Even if someone can look it up online and you can find where our suppliers were, to me it was a lack of like competitive awareness of just being so like like we're so out in front of the sustainability message. But with that business, I thought the brand aspect, people, just the sustainability message alone wasn't greater than having a cool product.
Dude,
and that's why it failed.
Yeah, like, you know, there's been some market research that if the price is the same and the quality is the same, then people will choose the more sustainable one, but they will not pay any more money. Or a meaningful amount of people will not pay any more money for the sustainable option. So it's a value prop if the quality is the same and the price is the same, but as soon as you try to get more money for it, it ends up being a detriment to the brand. And I mean, sustainability is definitely not the issue. The issue is the shoes are ugly, and then and I don't know why we thought San Francisco would be the people who could come out with good fashion. It's like you look at on which is crushing it.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a
we made that bet.
Yeah,
I was looking at it. I think I'm up like $600 from that 10.
Okay,
it dipped as soon as I bought it, but keep going.
Okay, yeah. But On is totally crushing it, and it's just like it's Swiss design, Swiss engineering, like people who have made good things for a long period of time. And why do we think that San Francisco-backed startups have any idea what fashion is, right? Like, and also. It's just venture capital style investment will never work in consumer, basically, is my thesis. And I've been saying that for a long time. So we've never raised any money. We've been profitable in every order because, of course, we're selling a physical good. We're merchants. The oldest business on earth. You have to make money while you do it.
Was there ever a time you thought, man, we really need money, and you tried, and like, did you take some swings and losses? You said, screw it, we can't do it, or was it, hey, we're just gonna head down and do it on our own?
No one would ever give us money. We never tried to get any money. I talked to the dude from Comcast Ventures who put money in a way, and I was just like, dude, look how cool it is. He's like, nah, I'm not investing in the weird wallet business.
And if you were to start over today, and what would you do? And maybe explain some of the, like, what you would pick based on some of the lessons you've learned in Ridge and what makes a great brand.
Yeah. If I was starting over today in the current environment, I don't know if physical products would be at the top of my list. I also didn't start a physical product company, right? I started an agency and I acquired my way into a physical product company. The challenge...
Consumer's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, dude, it's super hard. I mean, right now brands are selling for less than inventory value. Like great brands, right? Like there's a whole list, and brands you've heard about are going through bankruptcy filings or selling for inventory value, whatever. Parade's a good example of a company that thinks that they sold for $1 because it just ends up being a toxic asset. So if I was starting today from zero, I don't know what I would do. If I had some money, I would buy those brands because it's way easier to just like fix those over time. Mm-hmm. But if I was starting today, the opportunity I'd see, I would probably start in the service industry. Service is so great because it's a business you can start. Services is like consulting or whatever. Mm-hmm. You can start it with like no upfront capital, and I didn't have any money when we started our agency business. But I posted this on Twitter, like here's 12 businesses I think are good right now. One of them is like just helping brands use off the shelf AI tools. Uh-huh. Everyone wants AI tools, ChatGPT or whatever. There's thousands of e-com merchants or small agencies or whatever. And I'll just be like, you give me $5,000, I'll set all the AI tools up for you. So that's a business I would do. I'm trying to think what else was on my list.
What about the profile of a good consumer business? If it had to be a physical product, what are the bones that make a good consumer business?
Yeah. So I would first figure out who we're targeting. It's really hard to get men to spend money on something unless they're in physical pain or it'll help them get partners, like romantic partners. Like it's really hard to get guys to spend money.
I like to think Cuts does that for people.
Yeah. So like, it's been very hard to grow the wallet business. And if someone's listening to this and they want to try to sell wallets, please go out there and try. It's the hardest fucking thing because nobody cares about them. Nobody buys them. We have to spend millions and millions of dollars every month to convince people that they want wallets. Where if like you go after foot pain or something, people have a problem that they need a solution for. It's way easier to get those acquisitions. And then if it helps them, be 5 or 10% better in work or their romantic life or their personal life, it's easy to sell those type of products.
I love what you said there because you kind of even took a step back. Where my head was going was, it has 80, 90% gross margins, X, Y, and Z, but you even took it a step backwards and said, hey, let's start with the category and the product first, and then get into all that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't get into consumer unless you absolutely have to. I always tell people you make more money in consulting, you make more money in tech, like do one of those things, but you only get into consumer products if you absolutely have to. Like you have a passion and an urge that like you're going to make something, right? And it's why like, you know, fashion is art. Like undoubtedly I think fashion is art. And it's like why the best designers, like they are artists. So if you're going to get into it, you have to have that weird urge to make stuff. I think Daniel Kane, the guy who started Ridge, had that urge. But I would totally start with who am I selling to? Women are way more open to trying things. Like if it's any new brand, any new product, whatever, it's way easier to get the sale, but they also have higher return rates and
less loyalty.
Yeah, totally. With like, and I think men, it's hard to get the sale unless you focus on those two things. But then we're talking about like the mechanics of it. Ridge is one of the rare brands that has true 80% margins. So the way you measure margins needs to be the cost of a good sold, which is one aspect, cost of delivery to your fulfillment center, and then cost to delivery to the customer, right? Delivering it to the customer, if you're in America, costs at least $6.
Yeah.
Like that's just what a pick and pack and ship costs. So you have to add those things up. We're one of the rare brands that have 80% margins. Hermes, publicly traded.
Including cost of delivery.
Yeah, you have to include that, right? Because margin needs to be whatever it took to get the sale, right? Like if you just talk about cost of goods, we could talk about that all day long, but you should also probably put payment processing in there, any commissions you pay in there, because it's all the things that are required before generating demand, right? Hermes, publicly traded company, best in class margin, 79%. So we're up there with the best of them.
And that 79%, the way they do their numbers includes cost of delivery?
Yeah, it also includes maintaining their manufacturing machines.
So would that include the averaged returned units as well? Or is that?
I don't know how they actually look at returns. They're the best at margins. So we can look at it if you want.
Yeah.
But so without a doubt, you want to get as close to that 80% number as possible. And this is why it gets really hard, because if you're an Amazon brand, Amazon takes 15%, right? And that's before any delivery fees, whatever else. So if you're selling something on Amazon, even before paying for your cost of goods, you're at probably 20%. So I would look right now in the current landscape, cost of marketing has gone up over time. CPMs have gone up over time. Facebook has charged more per click over time. And even if you get a better click-through rate, they just charge more for CPMs because they have a fixed amount they want per click leaving the platform. So cost, and this might be super fucking boring. So if you
I love it. Keep riding.
So when I started in this business, the cost of a Facebook click was like 30 cents.
Yeah.
It has now gone up to $2.50. There is no world where I think that cost goes back down meaningfully. So if history repeats itself, it's going to continue to appreciate. What that means is people are going to convert at the same rate they're going to convert at. So you just need a higher AOV to pay for those clicks, okay? And it's why there's brands we know like Hexclad have gone from, low teens millions to pushing $1 billion in 5 years because the AOV lets those sales
And then you have
drive.
so much contribution margin to spend.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you have a 2x MER or a 1.5x MER, which is where you're spending, over half of your money on marketing, if your AOV can support those cost per clicks. So you want a product that converts at an average rate, but can tolerate those higher cost per clicks.
And isn't to combat the high CPMs, because what we're seeing this now is certain products have a different CPM. It's not blanketed across.
Totally.
So as you innovate in products, you have to think, where's the market going? Because if there's more people in market for that product, it'll lower the CPMs. Are we looking at that right?
Yeah, you totally are. The wallet business has lower CPMs than most businesses because it's a ubiquitous good.
Yeah.
Like they can show those ads to more people and they'll be in market for them. Where if you're selling a health supplement, like let's say like anti-aging or whatever, you'll have higher CPMs because they can only sell to people who are worried about anti-aging. And so it's a smaller subset and there's more people competing for that, which means higher CPMs. So you want a high AOV, mass appeal good that converts well. And it's like, that's the holy grail. So it's like, that's what everyone's searching for, either implicitly or not implicitly. They're just like, they're stumbling into it. But that's where you get Hexclad cookware, high AOV, everyone has to buy cookware, innovative, converts well. Like that's like the most beautiful D2C brand.
And probably decent repeat rate because once you get one, and there's going to be some level of wear and tear, and if it did well for you for X amount of years, you'll probably go back.
Yeah, probably a tougher repeat rate, probably the wallet repeat rate if you're waiting years.
Or easier for close. I always say you have to have that approach of you either have to or just naive enough. When I started Cuts, it was more out of, I was working at an advertising agency. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I looked at shirts saying, hey, I haven't seen an e-commerce brand do shirts. And that was my hunch enough to go for it. I was naive enough to think I could do it, not knowing all this stuff that I know now. And I'm so glad I did. I acted when I did, because I think it's a lot harder now. Like when I had one of my friends, hey, I want to start a polo brand. I said, save your money. Like, don't do it. It's very difficult. And you really got to love it as well. You got to absolutely like come to work every day wanting to grind. Speaking of low CPMs, what would happen if TikTok got banned today? What are the downstream effects of like Facebook? Is it good or bad for Facebook on the short and long term? What would happen?
It'd be very good for Facebook and Google in whatever term you want to measure.
And is that good for Facebook, Google, and bad for advertisers, or is it good for both?
It's probably good for advertisers in general, because you have to
more creators entering the platform. Well, so more ad space.
Yeah. So TikTok isn't especially good at delivering high performing ads, even though they have a ton of attention. They don't have a good conversion data. You know, like all the AI that has made Meta perform well post iOS 14, TikTok doesn't have that, right? And instead, what they're doing is pushing in-app purchases through TikTok shops, which only caters to a certain type of advertiser.
It's a low consideration products, right? Like even a Ridge, or it's harder to convert someone there.
Yeah. Like it doesn't work for Ridge, right? It works for like, huge discount snacks and candies and, art projects or whatever. So a lot of consumer attention is being wasted on these, checkout shelf products. Like when you go to a gas station, there's something right next to there. It's like, that's what
a good analogy.
Yeah, that's what I describe TikTok shops as. So premium advertisers, like the Netflixes of the world, are spending some money on TikTok, but they're probably getting worse ads than they would on a Meta. So if TikTok went away tomorrow, I think short form video will not go away. People will just turn to Instagram Reels and they'll turn to YouTube Shorts. So they'll have a surge of users, surge of watch time, and they just have better ad units, better ad data, better conversion optimized data. So they can fulfill all the needs of the premium advertisers, which they already do. And then they can also help out people who are more conversion optimized outside of just that one section of the gas station.
Yeah. And does Ridge have, it sounds like you guys don't have a huge focus on TikTok then.
We spend some money there, but it hasn't pushed its way into it's a duopoly, right?
Yeah.
It's Meta and it's Google. They get the majority of all spend. And then there's tertiary advertisers. Reddit, Twitter, TikTok, Snap, all of them I treat the same.
Influencer, you could.
Yeah, I mean, we would elevate influencer outside of that. We call that partnerships. It's harder to get those deals done. They're not programmatic, right? So it's like there's the big two, and then there's like a long string of everybody else, and TikTok hasn't been able to break out of that.
Do you think the sophistication of all of the attribution and how you evaluate advertising spend is what elevated you guys from, the graveyard of 50 mil brands to where you are now, of just having a deep understanding of all that?
Well, I wouldn't give attribution the credit. We love attribution. It helps us spend money. What really it was a deep understanding of the advertising ecosystem. We saw that when we started, it was cheap and it got more expensive every year. And so the realization was spend as much money on marketing as possible right now, because it'll be more expensive in the future. I think it's a never ending slope upwards. So it's like spend as much money as possible in this moment, like run the business at like a 2x MER. So spending half of our money on marketing so that we can just capture as many customers, get brand awareness, do whatever we can, because the future is not guaranteed. So
how do you look at now going into partnerships, Marquise Brown, Brownlee, how does that play into Ridge's strategy? You offered him equity into the business. How does that, how did you guys come to that conclusion that was the right thing for the business?
Dude, Marquez is goated. So
Yeah.
like, I mean, he's been the dream guy for this business forever. And a lot of, I think a brand should sit down and think, who is our avatar? If we could pick any celebrity, any famous person, who would we want, right? And we talk to all of the big studios. We're in LA, right? So we talk to UTA and CAA and like, be like, okay, who's interested? Like, you know, who has availability? And what do those deals look like? Because ads perform better when there's a famous person in them. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why every Super Bowl ad has a famous person in it.
Nike with Jordan, even back then.
Yeah. Ads just do better when there's a famous person in them. So we're trying to spend as much money as possible on marketing. With that marketing be as efficient as possible, we got to get a famous person in there. And we talked to Pedro Pascal. So like that was like, you know, The Last of Us was on TV. Like that was like a dream get, right? Like that'd be so cool. So we talked, to an agent of an agent or whatever. And they're like, yeah, we wanted to give him like $1 million and he wanted like 5 or whatever. And we're like, okay, we want 2 shoot days a year. We want this type of stuff. Yeah. And they're like, you get 4 hours once a year with him. And we're like, okay, this doesn't make any fucking sense. Like it's way too expensive. Like he's not integrated in the brand. It just feels like what an old legacy brand would do. Yeah. And then we sponsored creators forever. We sponsored Marquez in 2020, right? Like, we are a digitally native brand. We are internet first. Like growing up, I spent all of my fucking time on the internet, right? Yeah. So, you know, we ended up doing a public post on my Twitter that was like, hey, we want to bring a creator in-house. Like we want to do what, you know, the legacy brands do with celebrities, but with a creator, and we want them to help us make better content.
And he's the go-to creator.
Yeah. And in my tweet, I'm like, look, Marquez can have the job if he wants it. I think he's too busy for this. And we were getting close to signing with somebody else, actually. We had some offers.
As an equity deal or as just a paid deal?
There was a mixture of both. Yeah. So we talked to a lot of different people. There's some other people we got pretty close to, but I'm like, hey, before I sign this deal, I just want to make sure Marquez sees it. So I got it across his desk because we worked with him in the past. And he's like, look, man, the deal I posted, I think, was $1 million a year or something like that. And he's like, look, this deal doesn't make any sense for me, but I think we can work something out. And so we did that in September of 2023, and we went live with it like in March. Mm-hmm. But does that answer your question?
Yes, that it does.
Okay.
You know, cuts. We've had athletes and tons of different partners, whether Patrick Mahomes on Jimmy Kimmel and things like that, and it's been more of like, oh, cuts. You know, these people like it. Do you think there's a big difference between that type of community building where it's more like organic rather than like what is the difference between that organic use case versus like someone who's like a brand advocate and constantly pushing the brand? How do you think it differs in effectiveness?
Yeah, I mean, the difference is yours is cool because you can stay so relevant and up to trend, right? Like Patrick Mahomes wins the Super Bowl, fucking he's wearing cuts. Like that's awesome, right? The next guy wins the Super Bowl, maybe it'll be him, maybe it won't, but that guy could also be wearing cuts.
Yeah.
You can just always be a part of those stories in a more low touch way, which is awesome. I think that's probably what you're going for. The difference with hunkering down with one creator and like really like cementing that bond is that we're making products together.
Yeah.
We're going to probably be in Apple stores together. Like it's just like deeper relationship where, you know, making product takes forever, as you know, right? Like it takes a year at
minimum.
Least. Yeah. So like we can spend that time doing that together now where like if he has an idea for something, we have all the design resources and everything else. So it's just, you know, it's just the next level up. Is it better? Is it worse? I mean, the goal is for us that people, when they think of Virgin, think, oh, that's Marquez's company. That'd be fucking awesome. I'd be so stoked if that happens, right? But yeah, I mean, time will tell which story's better. I mean, LV does a great job being in everybody's hands all the time.
Yeah.
Right? And they have Pharrell as like the creative director. He's leading that stuff. They have a big thing with Tyler, the creator. But like at the end of the day, everyone's wearing it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's probably more what you're doing where, you know, we were really trying to find like, who is our face? Who's our Ralph Lauren? Who's the person that's going out there as like, not just a brand advocate, an owner, and like we'll make sure to like keep us honest and put his stamp of approval on it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a big difference between Marquise Brownlee and the next guy? And how did you decide, like what were some of the attributes that you were looking for in him Was it a growing account? Like, what were the things that you really checked the box that he was the right guy?
Well, undoubtedly, he's the number one guy we were looking for.
Yeah.
There's nobody else on the platform
Yeah.
that, I mean, there's some great creators, dude. I mean, Mr. Bass is a great creator. There's Mr. Who's the Boss. He's like another tech channel. And we work really closely with Linus Tech Tips and everything. The team Marquez has built is just very similar to the Ridge team.
Yeah.
Like, he's still directly involved in every video production. It's a smaller team, like 20 people. It is just like, he's at the perfect size and scale that like it blends nicely into what we're trying to do. But to answer your question, you know, specifically, we were looking for a creator that is really good at making content. Okay. Because we actually want to start making our own content that like is at least good. I think organic content is a good opportunity that like people forgot about for a long time, but I think it's back.
Yeah.
Two, we want somebody to be putting ads that can be a repeatable figure. Bonus points if they're recognizable. And Marquez is recognizable, so that's pretty good. And three, like, has opinions on products. Like,
can help innovate with you guys.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like, he could just be like, yeah, I don't like that. Like, oh, cool, we'll change it. It's like, you know, his words are gold in that realm. So
I heard this story about On Running where Roger really wanted to, he liked the product, and he actually spends like 21 days or something significantly in the design studio working with the design team to put his impact on the shoes. I think for Cuts, that's long-term what we would want, is someone who loves the product and we can lean on to help make whatever his specialization is an impact on the product. And I think to Marquis' impact on product innovation, I think, from my opinion, that could be worth, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars if done right. Dude,
totally. And, you know, it's hard to think in fashion who your person would be. Like Marquez is like hands down the exact person we want. But like, I mean, I think Tiger for you guys, but like,
and there's not that many of them. When we talk in the office, like Roger was the GOAT of tennis, and he represented class and excellence. In a decade, there's maybe one or two guys. Tom Brady, I think, would be that. Tiger, but you know, it almost takes, you know, Patrick Mahomes definitely would be that. But I think even him, his story's not necessarily there yet. I mean, maybe his story is definitely there, but like, you know, there's not that many of them out there that have staying power, that represent something so great that it's undeniable. It's not easy. It's not easy. Yeah. You don't want to give away percentage of the company because you could easily do it and it could be like a flash in the pan and you just, you know, someone sitting on your cap table that doesn't really have a huge impact.
Totally, dude. And like, yeah, it needs to be a 5-year commitment, right? Like, people who can work together for 5 years and build something and actually like get along. And that's the scary thing about doing this, right? And that's the reason why you want to avoid just like a UTA deal or a CAA deal. Someone who actually like genuinely is interested in, will talk to you. So it's all about that, like, you know, person to person time, where like, if I got Pedro Pascal for 4 hours a year, he's had no idea what Ridge is or what we've been working on, hasn't been following it at all. But Marquez in Slack with us, talking all the time. So yeah, there's probably like 20 guys on earth that could probably be the face of Cuts. And that's the challenge, is that like, so if you want one of them, it's really fucking expensive. Yeah.
Cause you definitely, you don't want to, you just don't want it to be a transactional thing. Cause then it's just going to be a waste of time from the creator. And the brand is not going to get the juice, probably what the cost is. What do you kind of leading into that, the creator economy? You've talked about on your Twitter a lot of like, creators will be brands in the future. You've said things like that. How does, you know, brands like Cuts that are brand first, creator second, how do you integrate, how do you know, ride that wave without getting left behind? Is it doing things like a podcast? Is it, you know, partnering with someone? Is there a way to kind of, you know, transition your business to be more like a creator? Like, you know, I think a lot of brands are maybe struggling with that. I know we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, dude, it's a challenge. What I'll say is, we could do the Marquez deal, or we could try to build me into a celebrity, and I am not that likable. So I'm like, look, it's wasted money trying to get me to do this, right? Like, I'm not going to be a fucking creator. What I'm going to be is a great CEO. That's what I'm going to try to be, right? So for us, it made sense to bring, you know, everything's buy or to build it. Yeah. It just made sense to try to bring the talent in-house some other way, right? Now, if I was Cuts, You can build it. The podcast is building it. I have a fucking podcast. It doesn't sell any wallets. It's about marketing.
And talent and all that.
So you can try to build the content, but really I think you're probably pretty insulated. A brand today of your size is probably pretty insulated from that trend, but the next cuts will need to have an audience first.
To get to where we are now.
Totally.
Yeah. Because it's so much harder to.
It's so much harder. And like, you have to be good at storytelling. You have to be good at building. And that's manifested the past 10 years as being a digital creator. Mm-hmm. So like, if you want to do that same stuff now, why weren't you just creating content the whole time? Right. Yeah. So it's like, it's a huge disadvantage, huge handicap to not just be a creator right now, because everything you're doing, and like when you go to wholesale to sell, or when you rally your team, or when you make new products, that is storytelling. You're shooting content, like you're building this brand, this image. And that's what YouTubers have done for 10 years, 20 years at this point or whatever.
Do you think, we've seen some creator brands, and without naming names, I've known some of them that have had a big, let's use the Brady brand. We'll use that. I like using that one, but he came out and, it was less successful than he thought. It was, the first initial success didn't mean that every month was going to be that size. There's got to be a challenge for there's got to be an opportunity for these creators to look at that generation of creator brands and say, hey, it's a lot harder to run a business month over month. It's probably easier to partner with the brand that's already there to kind of help do the hard part for us. Because logistics, Facebook ads, there's all this huge stuff. Is maybe that pitch the right pitch for some of these creators? Yeah, totally.
To run Ridge, you need 80 plus people
that really know what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think Marquez's team is it's sub 30, between 20 and 30. I think something like that. I don't actually know the exact number, but I think that's pretty close. So imagine if he wanted to build a Ridge on top of that. Well, he would need at least 10 people just right off the rip. So his team size is going up 30%.
That's $1 million in payroll, just
at least, right? And you haven't really made anything yet. You haven't really shipped anything yet. Building brands is hard. It requires, and actually more specifically, it requires a different skill set. He's the best in class at making videos. So do you want to go be shitty at Facebook ads? I'm sure he can hire and people on his team can learn how to do that or whatever. But it's just he spent 15 years honing the craft and he's so successful at it. Same thing with Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady is a great example because the motherfucker spent 25 years learning how to throw a football and just literally be the best in class at setting up plays. And he's a generational talent at this, right? And then does he want to go figure out how to build a P&L or negotiate with 3PLs? Does he want to go do that? It's he'll hire people to do that, but he doesn't actually know how to hire those people or what the skill is. So you're totally right that I think the merger will be a brand like Cuts and a creator and talent you really love coming together because you can handle all the product stuff. They can handle the storytelling and distribution. And in the future, in 10 years, if you want to build the next Cuts, Cuts is still going to be around crushing it, replacing Calvin Klein. But a brand like Cuts, it's going to be a creator who starts learning how to make content and then also learns all that stuff at the same time.
And that's the triple threat.
Yeah.
And when you can do it all. When you think where Ridge is going to be in the next 5 years, what gets you really excited?
Yeah. Well, I talk about this all the time, but if you go on Mont Blanc's website, there's a sub-menu to navigate, and there's going to be pens and watches and fragrance. Then you got to click accessories, okay? And then if you open up the sub-menu, there's another menu, and it says small leather goods, and that's where all the wallets are. So our current business is mostly a sub-menu of a sub-menu on an accessory brand's website. Mm-hmm. So what I'm excited about in 5 years is to fill out that full menu. It's we're currently really big. We have over 1% of the global wallet market. So the wallet market's fucking huge. It's $10 billion plus TAM. So we have a big chunk of the wallet market, but yesterday over half of our sales were our rings business and our luggage business.
That's great.
So what I'm excited for is growing the other lines of this company. And there are no wallet companies. We're the biggest wallet company. It's the worst fucking thing to be ever. What we want to be is an accessories brand. So it's filling out those menus. It's going to take 5 years because making good products takes a year or whatever. But it's 2024 now. By 2029, I think we're doing $1 billion just as an accessories brand. And
incredible.
That sounds nuts, right? $1 billion in revenue. We've gotten where we are right now off of one SKU and Coach, their public traded company under Tapestry. Coach does $6 billion a year in revenue. They do $1 billion a year in men's revenue. So why would any...
You're just getting started.
Yeah. Why would any guy buy a Coach product? It's like, that's the TAM we're going after. That's what we're replacing. So it's going to take me 5 years or whatever, but I've already gotten like over 20% of the way there.
So the conversation we had over the phone on this next on growth, I said, hey, we're thinking about this channel, that channel, more Facebook guys. You said, hey, let's take a step back and go into what you told me about how you think about growth.
I have no idea what I said.
People, place, or...
Oh, okay. Yeah. So there's only 3 ways to grow a business. You can make new products, you can reach new people, or you can go new places, right? So new places, selling on Amazon, selling in wholesale, selling in retail, right? Very, very simple. Right now you're on one channel, you can expand to more channels and you'll naturally reach more people. You currently make products for men, you make products for women, there's new people you can reach, right? And then new products, it's you make t-shirts, I'm gonna make hoodies. It's like, it's serving the same people you already serve. So more products for more people, more places. That's been the strategy this whole year. And it's most D2C brands never get a second hit product. Away still sells luggage. Like that is the only thing that they've ever done.
And they got rid of their apparel. They tried it and they got rid of it.
Yeah. All of these products, like you need additional entry points. You need additional acquisition points. So what we've been able to do more successfully than other brands, in my opinion, is launch new acquisition points. We've made more products. Now we're making products for people. So we're going to have women's wallets.
Yeah.
So we've got 1% of the global wallet market just selling to men. Women make up 2/3 of the global wallet market. So we're going to probably get 2 to 3% of the wallet market selling stuff for women, and then just going way more channels. So,
and I think one thing we've learned is if you do more people or more products, having a really defined like expectation of each is really important, because if you just stack products and then stack new genders and the pie doesn't get bigger, which means your ad spend and the business isn't set up to scale each of them, it just creates a more diluted singular business. So I think that's something you guys have done really well, is create different businesses and that don't compete against one another to truly increase the size of Ridge.
Totally. We've had $100,000 plus ring days that we could not get if we didn't have rings. That's like it's a stupid statement to say, but if trying to grow the wallet business an extra $100K, pretty hard, right? We're already doing a couple $100,000 a day in wallets. Getting another 100,000 is hard, but adding rings lets us have a whole new easy unlock. Is that we couldn't get that revenue otherwise. So just by having the product, it's been a huge unlock.
Are you the main decider of like what the role of the CEO is it you that's deciding, okay, rings to wallets to luggage? Is that your vision, or who's like the master of holding that, of what's next for products?
Yeah. What does the CEO do? So I set the strategy of we need new products, new places, new people. And I do a lot of work in like December setting up the next year. And then the rest of my year is mostly just poking people to make sure that they're doing what I want them to do. So what does that poking look like? I'm like, hey, I need you to make more products. I'm like, so Daniel's our chief product officer. He's in charge of category expansion and silhouette expansion. So we're on the phone, we're talking, we're doing whatever. He's a designer. He's an engineer. He makes stuff. I'm like, there's a revenue opportunity for us to do something new. What are your ideas? What do you think we should do? And I'll be like, I've been thinking about a knife. And I'm like, okay, tell me about the knife. Like, who's it going to reach? What are we doing with it? How are we going to sell it? Whatever. And I'm like, let's not do knives. Let's do,
and is your merchandiser helping you with understanding how big of an opportunity whatever idea has? And that's how you assess, what you may do next as well? Because there's a designer and then the merchant that helps, right?
Yeah, Daniel is like kind of sits over all of them as the chief product officer. Yeah. We're kind of choosing categories well in advance of everything. So we try to launch one category a year. So rings, travel, we have a category coming out this year. We'll have a category coming out next year. So those categories take a couple of years to build and mature. Like the first year of rings got to 8 figures. And rings could be a $50 million business for us like this year. So it takes you a couple of years to get the category to actually mature. So we're thinking about that far in advance. And then what the merchant's really doing is taking the silhouettes inside of a category. So like the shape of a knife, the shape of whatever, and applying that to the designs our chief design officer's making. So do we do an orange camp knife? That is what the merchandiser is deciding and putting on the calendar.
Got it. Sean, I feel like I could talk to you for hours. Every time I call Sean, I'm like, I get a little bit smarter. So I appreciate you coming on today.
Cool, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Dude.
appreciate it.